June 16th, 1944. Dawn is breaking over the jagged cliffs of Saipan, but the morning calm is a lie. The air vibrates with a low metallic growl, an almost unnatural sound that makes the ground tremble beneath your boots. Smoke curls from distant bunkers, and somewhere a shell detonates, shaking the sand like thunder. Private Hiroshi Tanaka huddles in a foxhole, mud clinging to his uniform, heart hammering in his chest. He has trained for this. He has drilled endlessly. But nothing could prepare him for what appears over the ridge. The first Sherman rolls into view massive, impervious. Its treads crush rock and coral as if they were paper, and the turret swivels with a deadly calm. Tanaka blinks, unable to process it. The stories he'd heard were only rumors, American propaganda. But now, here it is. The monster is real. A mortar shell from his position strikes the tank and bounces harmlessly off its armor. Tanaka feels a panic twist in his stomach. They are invincible. Myth turned to steel reality. Corporal Kenji Sato, higher up on the ridge, watches the line of tanks advance, their guns glinting in the early sunlight. Each Sherman fires with precise, unstoppable rhythm. Japanese bunkers explode, splintering into clouds of smoke and flame. Men scream, men run. The ground itself seems to reject them. Lieutenant Masaru Yamaguchi grips his field telephone, voice cracking. "Command, we cannot stop them. Nothing we have. Nothing." Tanaka crawls forward, rifle shaking in his hands. He fires at the closest tank. The shot is a whisper against the metal behemoth. Nothing happens. It keeps moving, crushing defenses, annihilating everything in its path. And in that moment, something unspoken passes among the soldiers. Fear, deeper than anything they have known. This is not a battle they can win. The American tanks are not just weapons. They are gods of metal, and the myth of invincibility is their truth. A deafening shot tears through the air again, and Tanaka flinches. Somewhere in the chaos, he hears a fellow soldier scream, a sound cut short by another explosion. The legend they mocked, the stories whispered in fear, are now stomping across the island. And yet, even as panic spreads, a grim determination sets in. If these machines are unstoppable, then somehow, they must find a way to survive. Facing the unstoppable. By mid-morning, Saipan's northern beaches have become a nightmare of smoke, fire, and mangled steel. Private Tanaka scrambles through shattered bunkers, heart hammering with each explosion. He can barely keep his eyes on the advancing Shermans, metal monsters that seem to glide over craters and coral with uncanny ease. Corporal Kenji Sato peers from a collapsed pillbox. He watches as a Sherman crushes a line of anti-tank obstacles like they were twigs. Soldiers scramble to fire their 37mm guns, but the shells glance harmlessly off the tank's sloped armor. The cries of wounded men pierce the morning haze. Sato's stomach churns. Every myth he'd heard about American tanks, unbelievable firepower, impenetrable armor, was now screaming at him in terrifying clarity. Lieutenant Masaru Yamaguchi shouts orders, his voice raw from fear and exertion. "Hold them! Do not let them advance!" But every defensive line they try to form is shredded almost instantly. One Sherman fires. A pillbox erupts. Smoke and shrapnel fill the air. The soldiers flinch instinctively, instinct overriding training. Tanaka crawls forward, rifle trembling, scanning for weak spots. Some of the men had talked about immobilizing the tanks with mines, with clever traps. But seeing the Shermans roll over everything, it seems hopeless. Even the terrain, they had thought, could slow them down. But the tanks move as if the earth itself obeys them, unstoppable. The psychological effect is immediate. Fear spreads faster than bullets. A soldier tries to flee, only to be cut down by a shell. Another collapses in shock, hands trembling, unable to fire. The myth of invincibility isn't just a story anymore, it is a tangible, crushing presence. And yet, amidst the chaos, a flicker of resolve appears. Some officers, desperate, begin coordinating ambushes with satchel charges and anti-tank rifles. They aim carefully, praying for a miracle. A Sherman hesitates for a fraction of a second after a direct hit to its treads, and for a fleeting moment, hope surges. But it quickly moves forward again, treads grinding over rubble, guns roaring like thunder. Tanaka feels a cold dread creeping through him. These are not just machines. They are the embodiment of destruction, relentless and methodical, and with each passing minute it becomes clear. There is no conventional way to stop them. Every defense, every trap is met with brutal efficiency. From the ridge, Sato whispers almost to himself, "How can anything survive this?" And in that whisper, the core of the Japanese soldier's terror is revealed. The Sherman is no longer just a weapon. It is a symbol, a terrifying promise that the world they knew on Saipan is ending, one explosive roar at a time. And then, a Sherman fires at the last remaining fortified bunker on the beach. The explosion lights the morning sky in a crimson bloom, and silence follows, brief, eerie. Before the next roar resumes, Tanaka freezes, realizing that their myth of invincibility is no longer a legend. It is reality, and it is coming for them. Desperation and the weight of fear. By late afternoon, the island of Saipan is a shattered landscape. Tanaka staggers through the remains of what was once a defensive trench, smoke stinging his eyes. The smell of burnt wood, scorched metal, and death hangs thick in the humid air. Around him, his comrades are silent, moving like ghosts, faces pale, eyes hollow, voices barely above whispers. The Shermans have advanced relentlessly. Japanese anti-tank positions are obliterated. Ammunition dumps explode, sending fireballs into the sky. Tanaka's ears ring from the constant thunder of shells. The soldiers had been trained to fight bravely, to hold the line, to defend their homeland. But bravery cannot stop an unstoppable machine. Lieutenant Yamaguchi gathers the remaining officers in a hastily dug command post. Maps are spread, fingers tracing the advancing tanks, but every strategy feels futile. "We cannot face them head-on," he says, voice tight. "We must use ambushes, traps, anything." His words hang in the heavy air, a fragile lifeline in the face of overwhelming odds. Kenji Sato leads a squad to prepare a satchel charge near a narrow pass. The plan is simple: lure a Sherman into the trap and detonate. But as the tank approaches, moving with unnerving calm over the debris-strewn terrain, Sato realizes the fear gripping him. Every step of the tank sends vibrations through the ground, shaking his resolve. He can almost hear it mocking them, a metallic growl of inevitability. The first charge explodes. Smoke and debris fill the air. For a moment, it feels like success. The Sherman slows, but only for a heartbeat. Before rolling forward again, its gun trained on the next defensive position, men freeze. Hope collapses into terror. Tanaka crouches behind a rock, rifle trembling. He watches as friends fall around him, each death a reminder that conventional courage cannot survive here. The soldiers whisper to one another, fragments of superstition mingling with panic. "It is invincible," one mutters. "No man, no bullet can stop it." The fear is palpable, infectious, spreading faster than the tanks themselves. Night falls, but it brings no relief. Fires burn across the island, lighting the night sky with eerie, flickering shadows. The men try to rest in shell craters, but the constant rumble of armor keeps them awake. Sleep is impossible. In dreams, the tanks come for them again, rolling over sand and blood alike. By the third day, the psychological toll is undeniable. Discipline falters. Soldiers refuse orders, retreating from positions that moments before they had vowed to hold. Commanders struggle to maintain control, shouting over the roar of engines and gunfire. The myth of Sherman's invincibility has become a living terror, more lethal than bullets, more crushing than artillery. In the darkness, Lieutenant Yamaguchi stares at the maps, a cold sweat on his brow. "How do we survive this?" he whispers to no one, the question echoing across the devastated island. For the first time, he, and every soldier on Saipan, grapples with a brutal truth. Some battles are not won with courage alone. Some monsters cannot be fought. They must be endured. And yet, the American armor continues to press forward, relentless, unyielding. Somewhere in the distance, the roar of a Sherman's engine cuts through the night, promising that the nightmare is far from over. Iwo Jima and the crushing reality. February 19th, 1945. The black sand beaches of Iwo Jima glisten under a pale morning sun. But there is no beauty here, only the acrid tang of smoke, salt, and blood. You can almost feel the heat radiating off the volcanic rock as Private Tanaka, now hardened by months of combat, peers over a shattered ridge. The Americans have arrived again, and with them, the iron ghosts. The M4 Shermans roll across the landscape with terrifying precision, cutting through Japanese fortifications like they are paper. Every bunker, every pillbox, every foxhole is vulnerable. Yet this time, the Japanese are prepared in a desperate way. Camouflaged pits, concealed mines, and hidden anti-tank guns. It is a deadly chess match, but one move behind a machine that does not tire, does not fear, and does not hesitate. Corporal Kenji Sato crouches in a camouflaged tunnel, waiting for the Shermans to approach a kill zone. The tension is unbearable. Sweat drips from his brow. His hands shake as he grips the detonator. This is their moment, but even now he cannot shake the fear he has seen what these tanks can do. The myth of invincibility is alive, whispering in the back of his mind, warning him that a single mistake will be fatal. The first Sherman appears. Its tracks crush rocks, its gun swivels with deadly intent. Sato hesitates, heart racing. Then, bang. The mine detonates, smoke and flame erupt. The Sherman lurches, but only slightly, before moving forward again. Sato's stomach drops. The legend was right. These machines are almost supernatural in their resilience. Lieutenant Yamaguchi, watching from a ridge, feels the weight of inevitability pressing down on him. His men are exhausted, terrified, but still they fight. Each encounter with the Shermans leaves them more battered, more demoralized. They adapt, they hide, they ambush, but the tanks endure. Each day erodes morale, turning courage into dread. Tanaka fires his last rounds from a captured rifle, eyes locked on the advancing metal giants. Around him, the island seems alive with the screams of the fallen, the roar of engines, and the crackle of artillery. He wonders how many more days, how many more lives, before the myth becomes their tomb. And then, the unthinkable happens. A Sherman is hit directly by an improvised explosive. It staggers. For a brief, heart-stopping moment, hope ignites. The tank slows. Men cheer quietly from their hiding spots. But the pause is fleeting. The Sherman regains traction, moves forward, its armor scarred but unbroken. Reality crashes down again. The legend was no exaggeration. These tanks are more than machines. They are harbingers of destruction, unstoppable and relentless. By the end of the campaign, the myth of invincibility has been seared into every Japanese soldier's mind. It is no longer a story told in whispers. It is a living, breathing terror that shapes tactics, war plans, and the very psychology of survival. Some fought with unmatched bravery, some with suicidal fervor, but all understood the same truth. American armor does not stop. It does not surrender. It does not forgive. The survivors of Iwo Jima carry the memory like a scar. Every Sherman that rolled forward, every bunker that exploded, every comrade lost under unstoppable treads. For them, The myth of invincibility had become a grim reality, etched forever into the volcanic sands and the memories of those who faced the metal monsters head-on. The legacy of invincibility. The Pacific sun sets over Iwo Jima, casting long shadows across the cratered landscape. Silence descends, broken only by distant gunfire and the faint rumble of Sherman engines far beyond the horizon. For the surviving Japanese soldiers, the day brings no relief, only the lingering echo of what they have faced. Private Tanaka sits alone on a ridge, staring at the twisted wreckage of bunkers and shattered artillery. His uniform is torn, his hands stained with mud and blood. Around him lie the ghosts of comrades who never made it through the relentless advance of American armor. He can still hear the roar of the Shermans, a metallic growl that refuses to leave his mind. Corporal Kenji Sato, once brimming with youthful determination, now moves quietly among the survivors. His eyes are hollow, scanning the terrain as if expecting the tanks to rise from the ground again. Invincible. They really were invincible, he mutters. Words of disbelief, spoken aloud but almost a mantra in their minds. The legend that began as whispers in fear has become a psychological chain, binding every soldier who lived through it. Lieutenant Yamaguchi stands over a map, the lines of battle etched into memory rather than paper. He reflects on the battles of Saipan and Iwo Jima, not merely as campaigns of strategy and firepower, but as lessons in human endurance under the shadow of a mechanical god. The Shermans were more than tools. They were a terror that reshaped tactics, forced desperate ingenuity, and exacted a toll far beyond what bullets alone could achieve. Even decades later, veterans recall the impact. Some speak of the fear that made men hesitate, even when courage demanded action. Others remember the awe that struck them, the sheer disbelief at seeing a machine shrug off everything humanity could throw at it. The M4 Sherman did not just roll over terrain. It rolled over minds, leaving a lasting impression on those who faced it. And in the broader narrative of the war, the myth of invincibility became more than legend. It became a story of technological supremacy, psychological warfare, and the unyielding power of industrialized combat. Japanese soldiers learned, often at the cost of their lives, that bravery could not always overcome steel. That myth and reality, rumor and fact, collided violently on the beaches and cliffs of the Pacific. Tanaka rises from the ridge as the sun sinks below the horizon, casting the island in a cold blue twilight. He looks out at the charred landscape and whispers a solemn truth. Some machines are more than tools of war. Some become legends. Some live on in memory, terrifying and unstoppable. The M4 Sherman did more than crush defenses. It shattered illusions. It forced the enemy and the world to confront the terrifying reality of modern warfare. And for the Japanese soldiers who faced it, the myth of invincibility was no longer a story. It was their relentless, unyielding reality. The roar of the Sherman has faded, but its legacy and the courage of those who faced it live on. Saipan and Iwo Jima may be silent now, but the stories of bravery, fear, and survival echo through history. If you found this story as gripping and unforgettable as the soldiers who lived it, don't let it end here. Like, share, and subscribe to join us on more journeys into the hidden truths of World War II. Hit that notification bell, because the next incredible story is just around the corner, and you won't want to miss it. History remembers those who lived it, and now it's your turn to witness it.